listening to Pen&P Pals Tabletop Role-playing Radio Theatre. Preparations are nearly complete. Retribution, Anise, and the others don't have much time left in Mablespring. The call of the Western Mountains, and the war beyond, is inescapable. At the bottom of the contract, Gren Grimrock signs his name as dwarves traditionally do, using a precise, rigid manuscript.
In turn, Retribution pens some incomprehensible scrawl.
Something from a lesser-known language, perhaps? Such varied signatures are commonplace throughout Kananta. No one questions the authenticity of her mark. Mayor Little reads the document again, from its beginning. This is the fourth one he's penned today. He's worried that such a busy morning will breed carelessness. Satisfied, he adds his own name along the bottom, then folds the sheet into thirds before sliding it carefully into an envelope. Two more, one labeled R, the other G, lay on his desk near a squat lantern. He drops a wafer of hard wax onto a small metal tray. Soon after, he's pressing a signatory stamp into warm, red wax, sealing each envelope in turn.
Here, one for each of you, and one as a record for me. If either of you develop any grievances, come back to me. We'll get them sorted out.
He chuckles softly.
I might not look the type, but I know some pretty rude bounty hunters. With that done, Gren, Mablespring has loved hosting you, and it's a shame to see you leave. Most of us had thought you'd be settling down here.
Both corners of the dwarf's mustache shift up into a smile.
Know this. At my core, I'm a wanderer. I stayed for as long as my spirit could bear. Your town snared me longer than most before it.
You can always count on a home amongst the people of Mablespring. And at the very least, you'll have dinner here this evening with the rest of your company?
Thumping a fist to his chest, Gren bows deeply.
I would be honored.
In an adjoining room, just beyond the doorframe, Anise stands casually perusing a small shelf filled with books. She's already acquainted with them. In truth, she's trying to keep an ear and an eye on the conversations around each new contract. The first two were for strangers, people seeking an armed escort over the mountains. Those didn't faze her in the slightest. Two crisp, official-looking documents later, these were would-be peers, and an odd jealousy has begun to grow. How are the girls?
They're fine, I think. Janice found one book early and has been reading it since. Absinthe has been cycling through several for the past few hours.
Really? She never struck me as the inattentive type.
I think it's a touch more tactical than that. In her own words, the mayor said to pick one, so I need to find the best one. Whichever one I come back to the most should come with me.
Huh. How very mercenary of her. Now,
Stepping closer, her voice drops to a whisper.
What about you?
Huh?
I noticed that you kept close throughout that entire process, glancing over now and again. Did you find something amiss?
Oh, no, nothing like that. I just wondered... Retribution, shouldn't I have a contract too?
Coming to her full height, Retribution folds her arms.
Written contracts are for devils and rascals, my friend. Are you planning on breaking rules, Anise?
What? No, certainly not. Not purposefully, at any rate. But that's the problem. I don't know what the rules are.
Retribution places a warm hand lightly on her shoulder.
Who does? Not I. The terms of our contract? We'll figure them out as we go.
She opens her left hand, turning its palm toward Anise. The surgeon looks down, opening her own hand in kind. Her mind wanders to a nowhere border town, to a hand dyed red with some sign, a flame or comet or bird. That sign of something she hasn't figured out yet. When Anise looks up, she's grinning.
I'm going to go help those two select a few more books.
Be careful now. An overabundance of choice can be burdensome.
Glancing briefly around the room, Anise leans in close.
I've kept this from them, but the mayor is worried the town will have to be abandoned and is trying to disseminate his collection. So he told me we could have more than just one each.
Backing away, she holds a finger to her lips. Shh. Alone in the doorway, Retribution, stunned from having met Anise's mischievous side, glances idly over the small shelf.
I should take a look too, then. Oh, it's not a dictionary, but a thesaurus would still be a big help.
By evening, Albert is in the midst of managing dinner. Sweet and savory perfumes pervade the mayor's home. Janice sits in the dining room enjoying the aroma, quietly reading one of her new books. In a chair this tall, her feet don't reach the floor. Occasionally, she clicks the dark gray heels of her soft boots together. Being able to rest comfortably on a wooden chair again is pleasant. Thin burlap doesn't cushion the bottom, but the white wool of her new dress does the job nicely. A small satchel rests nearby. It holds mittens, a floppy beret, and a bright blue scarf, the same shade as her eyes. She donned the full ensemble when it arrived in the morning, but wearing that much wool indoors made her feel faint. Her sister, on the other hand, refuses to yield even now. Absinthe returns from another foray into the cold. Closing the front door with an energetic pirouette, a short golden cape fans out around her. Dressed as she is, Absinthe feels ready for adventure, protected by a pair of cured leather boots, breeches that reach the ankle, a long-sleeved top, and a thick canvas jacket. Fingerless gloves and a series of little belt pouches like crafty burglars wear. A bright, tasseled scarf and a fancy vest like some dashing duelist. And a hooded cape. Ah, a golden cape, like a storybook knight. It would take more than a little heat to separate her from any of it.
Sitting near to Janice, absorbed in her own reading, Anise still wears her old silken rags. Her new clothes had been delivered earlier in the day, too, but the boots weren't ready yet. She decided to wait for the next morning, so as to change into a complete outfit.
The others are in the living room swapping travel stories. Retribution relates recent battles, while Gren speaks of one's long past. Fran tells tales about wolf packs, massive bears, and oddities seen at the edge of civilization. Throughout their recitations, Mr. Little doesn't say much. Occasionally, the old sword above his mantle catches his eye. He struggles not to lose himself in recollection. Looking through a window, he notices the fading sun.
Dinner should be just about ready. Care to move to the dining table?
Everyone squeezes in, putting the table just over capacity. A chair is pulled from the study to give everyone a place to sit. Then, after Retribution insists that Albert join them, Absinthe and Janice move to a single seat, the smaller girl sitting on her big sister's lap. With everyone settled, the mayor speaks.
I won't mince words. I'm worried about all of you heading to the Cinder Strand. But I know what it means to find your way through hardship. I feel that you're all capable of keeping each other from harm. I wish you all good luck.
He raises a glass. Everyone raises theirs in turn, except Absinthe, who instead hefts her new water skin. Time passes, and the weight of the meal begins to weigh on nearly everyone.
Retribution is the tallest at this table, and considerably more muscled besides. The wings and tail necessitate a little extra, too.
It's very good, Albert. Did you make everything yourself?
He starts, dropping a square of bread into a cup of hot cider.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Lacey taught me what I know. She sits staring at him in quiet, contemplative calculation.
Noticing this, he nervously shrinks into his chair, losing a good 2 inches over the next few minutes. Still later, with most of the meal tucked away, everyone's reflexes begin to dull. I won't say who, but someone tries resting their glass on the edge of a plate. The ensuing cascade of dishes jolts everyone to their full senses, and culminates with a glass of dark wine tumbling towards Janice. With a quick tug, Absinthe shields her sister.
Girls, are either of you hurt?
We're okay. Don't stand up, there's glass at your feet.
You did well to protect your kin, young lady.
Yeah, but look at this. Holding the corner of her cloak up, dark red bleeds across the gold. Janice pats her sister on the hand sympathetically.
Well, I just got this.
Your cape was wounded in a noble pursuit. Don't worry, dear. We'll stop by the tailor's in the morning and see if there's anything she can do.
Swirling the contents of his glass, Fran coolly remarks,
Raw burgundy is hard enough to get out of people. Getting it out of cloth is practically impossible.
Absinthe's face sours. She looks close to tears.
Seeing her distress, Anise speaks up.
Excuse me, but you shouldn't antagonize. He waves a dismissive hand toward the surgeon, keeping his focus on Absinthe.
You should save your pouting for something else, kid.
As he stands, he plucks a bottle from the table. Shimmying around the periphery, he kneels next to the girls. Holding the bottle at the bottom of the stain, he passes an empty hand over it. The liquid drains from the fabric to the bottle. Seeing her wounded cloak restored wrings a lone tear from Absinthe. She's so stunned, Janice is the one to reach up and wipe it away.
Ta-da. Can't fix the glass, though. Sorry. Sit tight while we find a dustpan or something, okay? Across the table, Retribution is supremely pleased. Small magics are common to those with elven ancestry, so she's not surprised. She'll need to ask him if he can flavor foods. Anise, though, her blood boils. A broken wagon wheel, a stained cloak, tattered shoes. Why can't she wave these everyday problems away? Why was she taught to remotely direct thermal energy and induce God's damned brain hemorrhages without being taught to mend her own clothes? Seeing the relief on Absinthe's face, the resentment is overwhelming. She won't forget how casually this country bumpkin does what she cannot.
The sun rises over the eastern trade road, early light playing off autumn leaves. Mr. Wallen delivers the repaired wagon to a side road near the Foothill Inn. He and Retribution trade no words, dealing instead in firm, meaningful nods. Throughout the morning, deliveries stream in from around town. 2 of the common room tables must be dedicated to incoming parcels.
Leaving Anise and the girls to oversee arrivals, she enlists Albert one more time. They head to the stables that shelter the group's donkey and horses.
You've been very helpful over our stay, Albert. I imagine we would have been here weeks longer without your knowledge of the local industry.
His cheeks turn rosy.
Thank you for saying so, ma'am, but if it wasn't me, you'd still have found someone else. Tessa, probably, or even Pina. She's not above running errands. Retribution only wanted someone along to warm up Anise's horse, and wasn't counting on Albert having any particular talent.
But he knows what he's doing. He greets, saddles, and mounts the horse handily.
That was well done. Milquetoast can be a touch stubborn when it's time for the saddle. Was it Pina or Lacey that taught you that?
Not noticing that he was being teased, he cheerfully responds.
Oh, neither. Before I started working at the Foothill, I spent a couple of years as a hand on the Tollivers' ranch, near the river. Their eldest taught me a little on how to ride. Realization creeps in. She knows better, but can't help but ask.
Pina, Lacey, you're not related by blood.
Disbelief spreads across his face.
Ma'am, no. I don't have any family like that around. Actually, speaking of that, I'd been wondering...
His words trail off and don't find their way back before the stablemaster does. She carries a saddle for Retribution's horse. It's heavy and lavish, worked leather dyed red and gold.
Atop her newest horse, with a proper saddle for the first time, she silently laments how much of it her cloak obscures. Sweeping it behind her, she asks,
Well, how do we look?
Albert can say nothing, producing only a weak smile. Some years ago, he'd visited a chapel of Helm. In one of its towers, a plaster relief depicted angels presiding over an eternal war between devils and demons. It terrified him. He'd die before saying it aloud, but Albert imagines she'd do well for herself there. With a trembling hand, he manages a thumbs up. They ride back toward the inn at a walk, Mayo the donkey on a lead trailing behind them. Being interrupted before had shaken his confidence, but he had already gotten started.
Ma'am?
Yes, Albert?
Could I come along with all of you? She says nothing for what is truly a long while.
To Albert, it feels much longer. Too long. Long enough to find a wife, have a child, then raise them to be the one she passes judgment on instead. Finally...
Maybe. Why, though? Why leave these people behind?
He scratches at his chin.
You pay really well, ma'am. At the very least, he has a mercenary's mindset. I don't have anything saved, no inheritance to count on later. Pina and Lacey treat me well, everyone I've worked for treats me well, but all I can do for them is simple work, for simple wages. That's not going to make for much of a life, ma'am. Retribution thinks coin to be as fine a reason as any, and there's definite truth to what he says.
Why not try to find an apprenticeship?
Well, ma'am, I think that's what I'm doing right now.
A civilian apprenticeship, Albert? Something here, with these fine people.
You paid me more in the last half-week than I earned in the month before that, and if you don't mind my saying so, you did it off-handed, like it wasn't even worth thinking about. There's nobody in Mablespring that can pay like that. As the inn draws into view, she sees the girls hauling cargo. This is absurd. Anise isn't much older than him, but she's a powerful, eccentric mage. Absinthe and Janice are younger, but they've chosen a chance at finding family over their immediate safety. But Albert? His life might not be fulfilling, but it is secure. She decides to let him down gently.
Albert, Anise, Absinthe. I'm sorry, but bringing so many two-syllable A names to a battlefield is an outright hazard. What am I going to do if I call out over the din of battle, and the wrong A responds? We can't bring you along, Albert. It's just not safe.
Crestfallen, the young man hangs his head. Looking sidelong at the Foothill Inn, he thinks of Pina, of Lacey, and he says,
What if you call me Leon? Retribution pulls her horse to a stop, pausing for consideration. A new name for the start of a new life. A promise of change you make to yourself. She urges her horse back to motion.
I command a company of mercenaries, and we require a cook. It's not a glamorous position, but it is an important one. Would you be interested in the job, Leon?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to make a contract of it yet. After you've traveled with us for a bit, we'll see if that's what you should be doing. If you're not cut out for us, I'll pay Fran to escort you back to Lacey and Pina. Is this acceptable?
Yes. Retribution rides ahead by just a stride or two, without turning back.
It's rude to ask, but why Leon?
Pina and Lacey's last name is Leonel. They've helped me more than anybody, and I think it sounds nice.
He sees her nod in recognition, but she says nothing.
Sister, where's the board with the food supplies?
Shifting through a stack of chalkboards covered in tally marks, Janice finds the one labeled rations, then waves it above her head with both hands.
Each packet here weighs... Anise, it was 2 pounds, right?
That's right. Although much of that seems to come from the packaging.
In that case, please put down pemmican 114 pounds.
Janice logs the disgusting volume of pemmican right below entries for cured ham and dried venison.
Hey, Anise, this is still a kind of meat, right? What makes it different from the jerky?
Fat content, and the way it's preserved, if I recall correctly. Also, you can eat jerky as is. Pemmican works best as an ingredient in stew, in my opinion. I'm done packing the smaller things into the trunk, by the way. Are you both done over there?
Yep.
Janice nods. Everything is accounted for?
Yep.
Janice nods again.
Oh, well, your boots still aren't here, but I don't think you'll forget about those.
Okay, then.
Anise nods confidently. They're done ahead of schedule.
I think we should take it upon ourselves to start loading the wagon. Please give me a hand. The girls clap.
It takes a moment for Anise to comprehend what just happened.
I'm going to have Retribution leave you here. Laughing, they organize a relay, passing items from the tables to the door to the mouth of the wagon. First boxes, then bags. Once the first 300 or 400 pounds of supplies are outside, Absinthe climbs into the body of the wagon with Anise, showing her how to open its false bottom. Just as they're considering how best to move the ungainly water barrels, Retribution arrives with Leon.
Retribution lifts the barrels to the side of the wagon, while the others work to secure them.
By the time another 400 pounds of equipment are on or around the wagon, Gran and Fran have turned up. Fran looks much the same, save for a shirt of scale and the long bow slung over one shoulder. Gren, on the other hand, looks like a completely different creature, less dwarf and more metal construct. He's wrapped in dark, composite armor. Heavy plate pauldrons and a plumed full helm, banded in splint mail spreading out from the torso, each joint covered by chain or scale. It's no hodgepodge, though. It's aged armor refined for this exact dwarf over a dozen battles. Over it all, a dusty tabard marked by a blue mountain. The sword he presented before is worn opposite its twin, both to his front, at the waist and nearly parallel to the ground. Despite his imposing figure, he gives Anise a small how-do-you-do bow.
Dame Anise, Lady Retribution, what do you require?
Nothing yet. We'll have some things to distribute to each of you before too long, though.
He bows again, then moves next to the inn's door. He stands at attention, still as a statue.
We could have helped, you know.
You were supposed to, but these three finished taking their tallies early and took it upon themselves to keep going after that.
Is there any point in helping now?
Absolutely. You take over here. Leon, please hitch the donkey to the wagon.
Leon?
We'll talk about that on the road, I'm sure.
Water skins, satchels of foodstuffs, small purses filled with silver and copper, backpacks, blankets. Everyone is provided at least these essentials. When a pack is handed to Leon, understanding comes to Anise. Realizing they'll have another person with them, she begins to calculate.
Retribution, do we need to purchase a little extra of anything on the way out of town?
No, it will be fine as is. I ordered around a third more than what I'd want for a group of 6. I'm a touch surprised you didn't notice that.
Frowning, she recalculates.
Damn it, I didn't notice that.
She wonders if Janice noticed that.
By the time the saddlebags are packed, their 2 clients have arrived alongside Mayor Little, just in time to see a cadre of busy mercenaries. The bustle sets them at ease. Tessa comes along just after them, carrying a pair of calf-high boots. They're a soft yellow, like cornflower.
Anise heads upstairs to change, spending the next few minutes adjusting several feet of bootlace.
Absinthe draws her hood up, then sneaks in after her. Leon goes to change too. He has no armor to don or weapons to bring to bear, so it doesn't take very long. He pulls a heavier coat on, and that's it. In spite of himself, he had packed everything he owns the night before. As he comes downstairs, Pina's fears are realized. Holding a kerchief to her mouth, she turns from him. Lacey motions him to the counter. Excuse her, we never thought she'd actually say yes. He folds his arms, sliding into a somewhat wider stance.
Me neither, but I think that's part of why I've got to go.
You don't have to go. There's work for you here, son.
I know how much you've done for me, but I can't live off your kindness forever.
You don't want to, but know that if you need to, if this doesn't work out, you can. You can.
Hey boss, is this everything?
Close. We're going to buy some lumber on the way out of town.
Just then, a rolling flash of tan and gold tumbles onto Main Street. A moment of frantic bundling later, Absinthe's head pokes out, framed by an unevenly popped collar.
Absinthe, give me my coat! You can put it back on forever and ever, after everyone sees your new clothes.
The confidence with which Anise steps from the inn is impressive. Corn yellow boots, a simple dress of forest green, and a long-sleeved blouse somewhere between white and mint. It's a far cry from the dark, ornate silk she wore before. The green looks especially vivid next to her quickly reddening face. The fire she had before is extinguished as she realizes that all eyes are on her.
Tessa, in particular, seems delighted with the ensemble. She has something of a vested interest, after all.
After a moment of rapidly flitting focus, Anise clamps her eyes shut, silently extending a hand toward her coat.
I'll give this back, but don't hide under it all the time. That's a nice dress. It looks pretty on you.
Anise's fingers flex away from her outstretched palm, a pleading gesture.
Having returned the coat, Absinthe heads towards the wagon. She doesn't get far before
Anise flicks a finger, telekinetically sending the young girl's cape up and over her head.
the flailing that follows is hard not to chuckle at. When she finally frees herself,
Did you just magic me?
Absinthe, you wound me. How could you accuse me of such a thing? It was just a breeze. A strong, justified breeze. Leon heads outside, blotting his eyes while Lacey and Pina quietly weep on his arm. Mayor Little shakes everyone's hand in turn, while Tessa takes one of Anise's hands in both of hers, quietly wishing her well.
Everyone adopts a position in or around the wagon. Fennel takes flight from the roof of the Foothill Inn. Retribution spurs her horse forward, motioning to Leon. He gently cracks the reins, and the party takes its first steps on a long journey. Anise wastes no time. They haven't even cleared the buildings along Main Street before the lessons begin. Handing each of her students a chalkboard.
All magic is predicated on an understanding of the weave. It's an invisible, odorless substance that pervades nearly every corner of the world. Spellcasters shape the weave that exists within, temporarily Westward, first to snowy hills and valleys, then to the frigid peaks beyond. The music for our intro was composed by Walker Williams. We have links to him and his work in the description. P&P Pals is adapted from a 5th edition D&D play-by-post campaign and has been dramatized for your enjoyment. This show is produced by Precarious at best and heard by you. See you again, well-prepared traveler.